Always read the terms and conditions and never breach your contracts. Good evening, book lovers of the internet. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe because for every subscriber, I get a new subscriber and they also read a page from a book of my choice. In this video, the fourth video of the day, by the way, I am going to be reviewing the second season of Squid Game by player 456, basically, and I hope you enjoy what I have to say. I binge watched this in less than 24 hours, even though it took the creators more than 3 years to come up with a second season, and now they're going to give us the third season in less than a year's time. I binge watched it in less than 24 hours. And this one consists of 7 episodes and took me about 7 hours to complete. And I watched it all yesterday and found it online since I don't have access to Netflix, but since I didn't download anything, I don't think that I've been doing anything illegal. To my knowledge, it's not illegal as long as you don't download anything. So, I mean, there will be several spoilers ahead, so watch this video with caution if you're a fan of Squid Game, because there are going to be spoilers ahead, and the spoilers will ruin your experience of the show because the surprises and the shock factor is very important to appreciate the show. So, I mean, this was basically an extremely advanced game of Among Us, and I also love how there is a reference made to cryptocurrency and a YouTuber who financially ruined several people, several of his viewers, through making content having to do with the coins. He told them to invest a lot of money in one of the coins, and it ultimately failed, and several of his fans ended up having to participate in the Squid Game just to get the money back. I really don't understand why people and several critics are hating on the season for being identical to the first, because I honestly don't think there are many similarities to the first season. In fact, I think um, there is a delightful change in pace, and it's a very brilliant way of building up towards the third season. So, I mean, watching this gave me such an absolute adrenaline rush, and I've never felt so alive. In fact, um, last night I went to bed thinking about this. I had some horrible nightmares about it as well. I couldn't really sleep properly. I am still shook over it, and it was honestly such an immersive sort of show. I haven't felt that way in a very long time, and I love how there's no forced inclusion, as Netflix seems to love doing. In fact, there is a pregnant person participating in the games. There is also a trans person participating. There aren't any black people to my knowledge. There are some gender fluid people, I think, some people who are very, very open minded in the show as well. Um, but it's not forced, it all comes across naturally. In fact, the trans person um, is still one of my favorite people in the show. And I think the actor did an amazing job. Um, the act, the acting in general was fantastic. I was genuinely so immersed that I didn't think to even watch it from a critic's perspective, and just enjoyed it for what it was. I was appreciating it in the moment. So watching one episode after the other and hardly glancing at the time. Now, to be honest, I am going to be quite critical of the show because um, I have to for the sake of making this video. But I only wrote this review a few hours after I woke up this morning. I really had to think about what to write and how exactly to express myself, because I think it is one of the best shows I have ever watched, and it's one of the most realistic ones as well. I wouldn't be surprised if something like this was actually happening somewhere in the world and we wouldn't know about it. So I watched season one prior to my very first day of Freshers Week at university more than 3 years ago. In fact, I recall spending all of the night. I pulled an all-nighter watching the show. I think it's the only all-nighter I've ever pulled in my life, just to watch a show. And this one I binge watched as well, and I would highly recommend it. By the way, I think this would get a 4 out of 5 star rating, maybe even 4.5 out of 5. And I don't say that lightly, it's a very solid rating. If you're a fan of Alice in Borderland, especially, definitely give this one a go. This, as I mentioned, was a brilliant setup for the third season, and I genuinely can't wait to see how it will all come to an end sometime in 2025. I don't know exactly when, and I am very frustrated that I don't. So basically, just to give a brief summary in this one, player 456 tries to stop the games from happening once and for all using the money he won. He uses the money he won in the first time he participated to hire people to find the recruiter, basically, in order to be able to get back to the island and stop the games entirely. In attempting to do so, he gets caught up in the games once again, and the games are different to how they were in the first season. Honestly, that is something that I was expecting would happen because otherwise it would be boring, and we'd be able to predict the games just as much as 456 would. So the different games is also what made Alice in Borderland so interesting, and I'm glad that Squid Game changed the games as well. So player 456 is basically John Wick, except towards the end when there are so many people dying that it's hard to keep up with the main characters and whether they're still alive or not. Hard to empathize with any of them despite all the character development. Um, because you don't really know what is happening, whether the characters are alive or not, what they're going through, what they're thinking. There's so much action and so little focus on the characters individually that you're just filled with adrenaline, but you're not really paying attention to the characters themselves. And honestly, this is one of the best cliffhangers I've ever been exposed to. And speaking of cliffhangers, I mean, in the first season, we got a person being shot and falling off a cliff, so that was a bit of a cliffhanger as well. Um, but this was even better, and I haven't wanted to know what will happen next in a very long time. So people are complaining that it ended too abruptly, but don't really understand how much is at stake and how now more people will want to watch season 3 when it's out because of all the suspense they managed to create. That is not something I would personally criticize. There is this character called Thanos, who's apparently some sort of celebrity in real life in Korea as well, who I found to be very funny, brilliant comic relief, and I'm disappointed that he had to lose to a fork when he managed to win every single game. There are many parallels I could make with The Hunger Games, The Maze Runner, and even The Matrix, and the main difference is that they really are given a choice every step of the way with regard to whether or not they should continue risking their lives. So, unlike the books or the shows or the movies I just mentioned, um, in this one, all the players are consenting adults who decide whether or not the games should continue. So, despite how horrible it might be that they are all dying, they are all consenting to what is happening, and where votes are concerned, it's all democratic. So, I think that the way the games are carried out is all very fair. And feel free to disagree with me in the comment section, but I do feel as though some of the players are at fault. So the frontman being one of the players, 001, was such a fantastic idea, and I empathized with him despite his betrayal towards the end. I really didn't think he would betray the players, considering he was doing his job so well, being one of the players, understanding player 456's perspective. Um, and I wasn't expecting it to end in that way. That was quite a quite a shock, came as quite a shock to me, and I don't quite see how player 456 didn't suspect anything about player 001, especially after what happened in the first season, and was actually giving player 001 all the details he required to plan the games accordingly and to attack the players since he knew that they would revolt. So player 456 was actually enjoying the games, and so was player 001, despite watching more than 356 people die for a second time in his life. And I love how realistic it all is and how different to Alice in Borderland it is in this regard. As I mentioned earlier, this is something that is probably happening somewhere around the world, and we wouldn't have any way of knowing. And this is a game which is so meticulous that there's no point for me to believe that it wouldn't be happening somewhere around the world as we speak. As far as I'm concerned, the participants are all consenting adults, as I mentioned, and are not taken to play the games against their wills. So it all ultimately boils down to their greed, which is what always gets to me, and how any shred of humanity vanishes in such an establishment as is that of the Squid Game. Um, Honestly, I really enjoyed all the plot twists. It kind of reminded me of the way Catching Fire and Mockingjay work in the Hunger Games trilogy as well, where the participants are revolting to regain their humanity. There are many, many brilliant characters, some of which I didn't expect to die so soon, and I love the change of pace. I'm not at all annoyed that. It ended on a cliffhanger. One thing that I find to be slightly stupid is how player 456 didn't suspect anything about player 001 and why he wouldn't do anything about it sooner, considering what happened in the first games where he was forced to be skeptical about anything and everything in order to save his life. But that is all I had to say about Squid Game Season 2. If you leave any comments with your thoughts, I will be replying to you and hopefully we'll be chatting more about the show. I want to continue thinking about it for as long as possible because it's a show which I'll be thinking about very, very um, often. I mean, this was only released on Netflix 2 days ago, so I am one of the very first people to have finished it all in the world. And if you enjoyed my thoughts, make sure to leave a like, comment, share, subscribe. Check out the rest of my content because why not? It's absolutely amazing. And I will see you in the fifth and the final video for the day, hopefully very, very soon. Bye, guys.